A little while ago I put out a video about my top 10 PlayStation 1 games because the PlayStation 1 was my first console and I was going to do a video of these for each and every console, and then, say it with me gang, I got distracted. But I'm here now, 6 months late, and I would like to tell you about my top 10 favourite PlayStation 2 games. Now, a few things to keep in mind. First of all, I was still a wee babby around this time. I was still very young, so we're going to see games more on the kind of like, you know, games towards the younger generation. You're not likely to see Metal Gear Solid on here, I'm sorry. Although, to be fair, I do have friends who are in my age group who grew up with me and still love Metal Gear Solid, but not me, sorry. This is going to be a very subjective list, and I hope you will be excited to hear it will contain some games which you have probably never heard of. The other thing is, it was very difficult to put this list together. It's one of the reasons this took so long, because I was lucky enough to have quite a fair selection of games to choose from. I think this is also around a time when pre-owned game stores really started being a thing. Maybe they were already, I don't know. But yes, I remember we would look for cheap games and stuff, and that's probably another reason why a lot of these are games that you might not have heard of. Maybe this is, I've never thought about this before, maybe this is why they're not top shelf, critically acclaimed video games apart from some of the best on this list. But yes, I remember when we got our PS2 for the first time. One Christmas it was the family PS2, even though I definitely played it the most, and we sat around the television and watched my dad try and hook that thing up, and as a kid I thought, dang, this seems like a really complicated thing to do. This must be really difficult. And as an adult I go, what the hell, Dad? It's like 3 cables. If I'm remembering correctly, and there's every chance I'm not, our PlayStation 2 came with such heavy hitters as Dave Mirra's BMX2, Extreme G Free Racing, or Extreme G Racing Free, XG Free, Evil Twin, and oh god, what was it called? Hurdy-gurdy. Not the strongest lineup of games. Were any of those launch games? I'm gonna go look. No, but some of the titles on this list were, and I am surprised to see them. Also, Rayman Revolution. Shout out to Rayman Revolution. We got that not too long after, and I really want to replay that game. It's probably one of my most wanted games to get my hands on and play through again. Maybe I should just do that. Oh, actually, you know what? I was looking at my honorable mentions. I made this list like a few months ago, and I just haven't got around to recording it yet, so I might need to shuffle some things around. But one of the games I was surprised to see on the launch game lineup was RC Revenge Pro, which technically is one of my favorite PS2 games, sure, but also is kind of a HD remaster / remake of RC Revenge, which was already on the top 10 PS1 list, and therefore I would have to evaluate RC Revenge Pro based solely on the merits of it as the PS2 version, so the up-res graphics, the cars it added, and the tracks it added. And while the cars it added were kinda neat, and the up-res graphics were pretty nice, I would prefer to see that version of the game on my screen than the PS1 version. The new tracks, they are a chore, so I don't think it gets to go into the top 10, but it's an honourable mention. Smuggler's Run was another EU territory launch title which deserves an honourable mention, mostly because I had so much fun in that game just free roaming and playing it with my dad, and we used to like, I don't know if it was Smuggler's Run. Yeah, I don't think you could do this in the first game, but in the second game, you could use cheat codes to like put down landmines and then launch yourself across the map, and the physics were crazy. Such a good time. But yeah, free roam in Smuggler's Run, the first game, that's the kind of thing where, yeah, that was really fun to my kid brain. I don't think that would be quite as fun to me as an adult. Same thing with Midnight Club 1, another honourable mention here. Loved free roaming in the cities of Midnight Club. Me and my sister, we used to try and we went into the London level, I believe it was, and we would push the traffic with our cars down into one of the underground tunnels and cause these massive traffic jams. I'm going to give another honourable mention to Need for Speed Underground 2. Very almost made the top 10 list, but the top 10 list is just too contested, I'm telling you. Then we've got a couple of vehicular combat games. If you remember my top 10 PlayStation 1 list, that genre featured in that list. It's also going to feature a little bit more heavily in this list, but the two games which didn't quite make the top 10 are Cell Damage Overdrive and Motor Siege Warriors of Prime Time, two absolutely cracking vehicular combat games for any kid to sink their teeth into. I said that like adults aren't allowed to enjoy those games. You're allowed to enjoy those games. And then my last two honourable mentions both begin with Gran. Firstly, Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. I wasn't into boring racing games yet, but I would be, but it was a family favourite, and I mostly enjoyed it for like watching my sister play it. She did this thing where she would drive every single car to the point where they would all have very similar mileages, and she would always play her least driven car first. It was, I don't know, it was fun. And Grand Theft Auto Vice City, a game which I was definitely old enough to play. I had a lot of fun free roaming in that game. We might hear more about that kind of a game in a future video. But those are the honourable mentions. So now let's get to the top 10 list. The official top 10 greatest PlayStation 2 games ever made. It's me, Objective Larry, here to give you your objective opinions. Remember to smash that like button and ring that bell. Okay, that's enough of the bit. Number 10, Gauntlet Dark Legacy.
In an ancient time, the evil mage Garm, using the power of the runestones, released a great evil upon the land.
Told you that this wasn't going to be like your mainstream heavy-hitting games. Gauntlet Dark Legacy is a dungeon crawler. It was my Diablo before I ever discovered Diablo. It's not actually like a Diablo-style game, but it's as close to it as I would get for a little while. It's also not the most popular Gauntlet game, depending on who you ask. People seem to prefer the previous game, which was Gauntlet Legends, I want to say. But Gauntlet, you've probably heard of Gauntlet. It has its roots in arcade gaming. I've tried a couple of the original arcade titles, and, you know, they're definitely old arcade games. But Gauntlet Dark Legacy was a game where you had like a level hub, a little bit like Crash Bandicoot. You would have like these circles of 5 levels to go into, and then you'd go into them, and unlike Crash Bandicoot, find yourself swiftly assailed by the undead, and you would choose a character. I think I chose the Jester as a kid. I very recently went back and played this again, and I was playing, I think, the Sorcerer, because I think I remember in my head as a kid being like, whoa, Sorcerer, that's a cool name for a wizard. It's kind of cartoonish. Like it's like all gothic and grimdark, but it's kind of in a cartoonish kind of a way. Like, you will find food to eat to heal up your character when you take damage, and when you eat it, your character goes, nom nom, for food is good. But yeah, it's pretty standard. You walk around the levels, you shoot your various powers at the enemies, you know, they come out of spawners that you have to break apart. I've never beaten this game. I do want to actually sit down and play through it in its entirety at some point. But yeah, it was fun, and I just have, despite having never really got all that far through it even, I've got an astounding amount of fondness for Gauntlet Dark Legacy, and I really hope that they re-release it someday on modern systems. If you go to any video about Gauntlet Dark Legacy, you will see the comments are full of people crying out for a remaster. Unfortunately, I don't even know who owns Gauntlet anymore. I don't think it's a game that people think is profitable, so I don't know if we're ever going to get an official remaster. So let's move swiftly on to number 9, Unreal Tournament. I don't know why I said that in a Halo announcer voice, considering it has its own announcer who says, it sounds like this. This is what the announcer sounds like when you boot up the game.
Unreal Tournament.
Anyway, this one is a little bit interesting. Why is it 9th? Because Unreal Tournament is a game I still play to this day fairly often. Unreal Tournament was my very first-person shooter, and as an arena shooter, it was very similar to vehicular combat games in that you would, traverse the map, picking up power-ups and weapons to defeat your opponents, and when you died, you would reset and have to traverse the map to find the weapons again. Those two subgenres are very similar. One of them is with vehicles, one of them is with your little legsies. I think I'm the first person in the history of the human race to describe the characters of Unreal Tournament as having little legsies. Anyway, my dad picked this up on eBay one day, handed it to me and said, "Give this a go, son," and I did. God damn did I give it a go. And you know, the controls were very weird to me as someone who had never played a first-person shooter before. Doesn't help that the default controls in that game are not your typical first-person control scheme. I think you moved around with a right analog stick. But the reason it's in 9th place is because it's not my favourite version of the game, and it's not the one that I've spent the most amount of time playing. It was my first version of the game, and it introduced me to the love of bot matching, to which to this day I still opt for in arena shooters before I play a multiplayer game usually. But hey, when I got my Steam account, I picked up Unreal Tournament back before they delisted it, the bastards. And I have spent the majority of my time playing the PC version of the game, to the point where it feels weird to go back now. I have loaded it up fairly recently, and it does feel weird to go back, but it still has some unique maps that are not available in the PC version, and it's got its own unique charm to it, and it will always be my first-person shooter game that I played a decent chunk of. So here's to you, Unreal Tournament. You really opened my eyes to the love of blasting my enemies into pieces of red meaty chunks. Number 8.
Dude, I just talked to Stacy Peralta.
They know. Those gangsters know it was me.
What are you talking about?
When I got back to my house last night, they were parked outside waiting for me. I gotta get the hell out of here. My cousin's got a place in New York. You've gotta help me get to the train station across the river.
Tony Hawk's Underground 1. Tony Hawk's Underground 1 was my first Tony Hawk's game, that's right. I skipped the entire Pro Skater series, but I did go back and play it afterwards, don't you worry. I wasn't a complete stranger to sports, oh god, what do you even call them? They're not sports games, or they're not only sports games. I wasn't a complete stranger to, hang on a minute. Olympic sport categories. There's a word for it. There's a word for it. Skateboarding. 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 Oh, it's an action sport. I mean, they're all action sports, right? Whatever. Dave Mirra's BMX2 was my first one of those, but Tony Hawk's Underground is what really sold me on the genre. And I wasn't good at it. I hated the concept of manualing, so I know for a fact I did not chain tricks together like I was supposed to. But lucky for my imbecilic child brain, they had a story mode, and I was interested in the story. I've talked before about how I kind of like assigned a story to Dave Mirra's BMX2 as like you progress through the different maps in that game of like this kid who's running away from home. Well, Tony Hawk's Underground actually provided me that kind of a story experience that I guess I was looking for. And while even as a kid I remember I wasn't exactly riveted by the story, it was enough to keep me hooked and interested. And Eric is a piece of goddamn shit, by the way. Eric Sparrow, if you were real, you would not be in for a good time. But yeah, I just spent a lot of hours whiling away the youth of my childhood on a virtual skateboard. Oh, why did I say it like that? Now I'm sad. It was a good time, and I would go on to play most Tony Hawk's games which came after it, which unfortunately was kind of a downhill jam, if I'm going to use that term ironically, although Tony Hawk's Underground 2 was very fun, of course. The only reason that one's not here instead of the original is just because the original cemented my love of the series, and I feel like that earns it more points. I haven't picked up, this is a tangent, but as of the time of recording, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 is still fairly new. It also came out around a time when I fell out of love with Xbox because they went super weird about cancelling all their projects and investing in AI and stuff. So I haven't played that one, but I had a great amount of fun with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. And yeah. Did you enjoy that tangent? Shall we move on? Numero 7. That's not how that language works. Fur Fighters, Vigo's Revenge.
Can you hear me, my old friend? I've returned as I vowed I would, and soon the world will be mine. But you shan't be interfering with my plans like last time. I'm not going to kill you. Where would the pleasure be in that? No. I want you to witness my triumph and suffer as you're forced to stand helplessly by.
Now I know what you're thinking. Kritigri, my good lad, what the hell is Fur Fighters Vigo's Revenge? Except I know you're not actually saying that because you clearly already watched my partial playthrough of the game on the channel, right? So Fur Fighters, which I've never played, was a Dreamcast title, which is probably why you've never heard of it. Sorry, Dreamcast fans. And Fur Fighters Vigo's Revenge is kind of a re-release slash remaster with additional bits on, a bit like RC Revenge Pro, where they changed the graphics to be cel-shaded and stuff, and I believe like they changed up some of the gameplay. I would be fascinated to go back and play the original Fur Fighters on Dreamcast someday. But basically the game is an action platformer of a sense, of a style. It's more action-adventure, I suppose. But in the game, you control an assortment of furry creatures who pick up like prisms. That's like your collectible, that's your currency. They run around these levels and they use automatic weaponry to blast their enemies to smithereens, I guess. Their babies have been stolen by the evil General Vigo, and you must get them back. And it's really cool, right? Because each character has its own ability. Cow the Kangaroo, is that his name? No, that's a different video game series. Bungalow the Kangaroo, sorry, he's Australian. He can jump really high. Then you've got Tweak the Dragon, who can glide short distances. You've got Rufus the Hound, who can dig in certain spots to get to certain spots. You've got Chang the Raccoon. I know, I'm sorry, it is a little stereotypical. But he's small, so he can get underneath certain places. Rico the Penguin can swim underwater. Juliette the Cat, the French cat, she can climb up walls with scratch markings on them. Basically, they all have like these different quirks and different abilities to help you get through the level. And you don't just choose one at the start of a level and go and do the thing they can do. No, there are little orbs around the place which you can use to swap between the characters, and it leads to this really fun gameplay of exploration and figuring out like, oh, I need Rico to get this baby, and so you go and see where Rico is in the level, but like maybe he's not nearby, and it's just a really fun way of doing a kind of like this adventure action platformer game. And I'm a little stunned that it didn't do better, because I've never heard, to this day, I have never heard anyone mention it in passing. Unless I'm going out on my way to look for content about the game online, I've never seen anyone mention it. So here I am mentioning it. It is one of my favourite PlayStation 2 games, and it is my personal vote for most wanted remaster, and also least likely remaster. Although I think they were working on an iPad version once or some shit. Who knows if that ever came to you know what, I've got an iPad, let me go check. It's not looking good, fam. Fur Fighter fam? Fur fam? Can I call you that? I don't think it's looking good for us. I don't think we're being served as an audience today, I'm so sorry. But yeah, I'm not done selling you on a game yet. There's different weapons as you run around the maps. You can pick up different weapons, I guess Doom style. You unlock them and you keep them forever, but you can unlock them early if you find them in secret areas and stuff like that. I remember this game had a very weird control scheme. It was triangle to run forwards and X to run backwards, but you get used to it. And my favourite part of the game is the hub world, because the hub world is Fur Fighter Village, and in Fur Fighter Village it's got some of the most beautiful, peaceful music, and you can run around and you can explore every character's house. As you save the babies, it becomes more populated with the children, and other things which I won't spoil as well change. And you can go into like, Juliet has like this geometry-defying library which is bigger on the inside. No, it's not a library, sorry, I got that wrong. I always thought it was a library as a kid. It's a walk-in wardrobe with like clothes and stuff inside, but I always thought it was a library. That's just the beauty of low quality textures, I guess. And like there are mini games which you can unlock, and they're like, I guess they're probably like rip-offs of old arcade games like Lunar Lander and stuff, now that I think about it. Is that what it's called? Lunar Lander? The one where you try and land a lunar lander without exploding. And honestly, a significant portion of my playtime was just spent in Fur Fighter Village, chilling out. If I'm doing my job as an editor, you're listening to the background music right now. Or at least you were, because now we're about to change which game we're talking about. Number 6! Burnout Free Takedown. You thought we had escaped the racing games, didn't you? No, they're here. They're still here. We didn't leave them all back in the honourable mentions. Burnout Free Takedown was the perfect racing game for the little chaos gremlin that I was as a child. And while I'm sure it needs no introduction, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't talk about the dang game. Burnout Free... I almost called it Paradise. People are probably more familiar with Burnout Paradise, to be fair. But Burnout Free Takedown was not an open roaming game. It was a game where you would select your track, a little bit like Need for for Speed, Hot Pursuit, the second one, you know what I mean, the fucking, games are so dumb. There would be events and you would select them and you would go into them and you would race and it would be a racetrack. And the best thing about this game was they included a brand new game mode. Can you guess what it was called? Can you guess? It was called Takedown. How did you not guess that? And in Takedown, you wouldn't be racing to see who came first. You would be racing to destroy your opponents and bash them into walls. And this game had vehicle damage in a way that hadn't really been done at all in games up to this point. I would say or since, but looking back, it's a little naff, it's a little tacky. BeamNG exists now, so, you know, I'm not sure it can hold that title anymore. But at the time, oh my god, it was immense, it was incredible. And I had such a good time. I remember one of my fondest memories of this game is I went to a friend's house and I saw that he had Burnout 3 as well. So we played some multiplayer and I kicked his ass, dude. He was an older kid from the year above as well, so I felt pretty cool about that because that's how you establish hierarchy as a kid. It's all about who's in the year above. So naturally he should have been better at video games than me, and he wasn't. I was just that good. Oh, he spent more time outside than I did, but don't tell anyone. Anyway, yeah, I don't think there's all that much more that can be said about Burnout 3, but it's a great racing game and an even greater crashing game. But speaking of vehicular destruction, number 5, we're back to games you've probably never heard of.
Welcome to the Vehicle Combat League. Motor Mayhem. New game. Choose your character.
Motor Mayhem is my car combat game of choice. Why did I choose this one over Cell Damage Overdrive or Motor Siege Warriors of Primetime? I don't know, it's actually not that deep. They're all really good games. But Motor Mayhem is the one I have the most memories of. It's the one I probably spent the most time in. It's just great. I loved the variety of maps. I loved the fact that compared to something like Motor Siege Warriors of Primetime, each vehicle felt different, kind of had different handling, different stats, different everything. And the different weapons were awesome. You had a railgun in this game, which I always thought of as a cucumber gun, because it looked more like a uranium rod, but I guess to my kid brain it looked like a cucumber. What kind of cucumbers was I eating? Every weapon in Motor Mayhem had such a unique feel to it. There are some weapons in that game that I've yet to really feel like I've seen in other places. And the maps had secrets. If you remember me talking about my top 10 PlayStation 1 games, one of my favourite things about Rogue Trip was that the maps had secrets, and in this game the maps had secrets. You could break certain walls and visit certain areas which had better guns and stuff. You also had the ability to like change it so all like the guns in the map were a mini nuke, so you could just have an all mini nukes match. At least I think you could. Am I making that up? I might be making that up. Don't listen to me. But there was a campaign mode, and there was like a story. You know how I said every vehicle was different, and each vehicle was piloted by a different character, and they all have their own designs, and it was early 2000s as hell, and it was fantastic. Oh, and each vehicle had a secret move combo list. If you collected enough energy, I believe you could use it for boosts, or you could use it for like the secret combos, and some of them were very, very powerful. I mostly played as the 2 bike characters, I remember that much. Anyway, if you're looking for a probably never spoken about in your vicinity niche early 2000s vehicular combat game, you can't go wrong with Motor Mayhem. It's a great time. Is it objectively a better game than Burnout 3 Takedown or Unreal Tournament? Shut up. This is an impossible list, we're just gonna roll with it. But speaking of games you've still never heard of, I'm sure. Why am I like this? Number 4. This is a game called Road Trip Adventure, not to be confused with Rogue Trip Adventure, which is substantially more explodey. Road Trip Adventure, you know what? I don't really know all that much about the context surrounding this game to introduce it to you in a way which is objectively interesting, so let me just read the Wikipedia page for you. Road Trip Adventure is a 2002 racing adventure video game for the PlayStation 2, released as Koro Q HG2 in Japan by Takara, and is Road Trip, or Everywhere Road Trip, in North America by Conspiracy Entertainment. In 2003 it was also released in Europe and other PAL regions by System Free under their Play It label named Road Trip Adventure. It was developed by E-Game, a small Japanese developer. It's a car PG. It's a car PG, goddammit. So you may be familiar with some other Koro Q games. I don't remember if I mentioned Penny Racers in my PS1 video, but that's one of them. You might also know the series as Gadget Racers. I think I had 2 other titles from this series, but this was the only one that I played that did the car PG thing. Apparently it has a predecessor which does the same thing with the open world and everything I'm about to talk about, and I am so intrigued to try that someday. But yes, Road Trip Adventure. Basically, the story is cars before cars, okay? The world is populated by sentient vehicles and it's not weird. Stop calling it weird. Stop asking how they made the buildings. Stop asking, damn you. And so the story of the game goes like this. The president of the world, I think, he's had enough and he's resigning and he's gonna make the next president, because that's how that works. He's gonna make the next president the person who wins the next championship. So part of this game is a racing game, like a traditional arcade racing game with very dodgy physics. I will say it's very cartoonish. It's very floaty, I will tell you. It's not the best racing game out there. What makes it unique is that there is an open world, and you basically drive in the open world from location to location to visit these different garages to take part in these races. And as you do so, you run into NPCs, literally run into them. You collide with vehicles in order to speak to them. It must be hell on insurance. And, you know, it's basically a JRPG. Everyone in town has something to say. There's side quests to go and do. There's collectibles to pick up, like Koro Q coins. There's these little photo booths where you go and snap a picture and try and complete a photo album full of pictures. There are secrets in the open world, and it's just incredible. It's not. It's like a 6 out of 10 game, but shut up. It's incredible. Sorry, that's the second time I told you to shut up in this video. I don't intend to be hostile towards you, okay? I've got a lot going on inside right now. In the first town, you can find a coffee shop that will allow you to put a sign on your roof and you will earn money for the amount of miles that you drive. And by the way, you can name the currency to whatever you want within 4 letters. I think I called it dunk or something, so I'd get paid in dunk. It was so dumb. I love this dumb idiotic game with all of my heart. And oh my god, it had some terrible radio station music as well that's just stuck in my head since I was a kid. And the lyrics are just so... I don't know if they're real songs. I don't know if it's real music or if it was like some like side project of one of the developers in their garage or something. But it's not great. The minute that you leave me, you're gonna find out you want me. The minute that you want me, you're gonna find out I'm gone. You know, it's that kind of stuff. I'm pulling that from like 10 years ago, so if I got the lyrics wrong, I'm sorry. There's a whole part of the game where you find a city, like an empty city, and they ask you to tell people about it. And it's just called My Town or something. I think they forgot to make it so that you could rename it, but I've only just realized that. As a kid, I just thought it was always meant to be called that. And so you go back through the open world and you find all of these vehicles which are like, oh man, I kind of want to move away from this place. I want to move away from Peach Town, man. It's not doing it for me. Do you know of anywhere where I can go and live? And you can tell them. And every time you tell someone, they will go and make a home. And eventually the city fills up and becomes an entirely new city full of new interesting buildings, and you can like collect mini games. Oh, the mini games in this game. This game was Rocket League before Rocket League. And you can have your own home and you get emails from people who you've helped. Eventually the emails do start to recur and they also get weirdly unhinged. But yeah, I love this game. I really do. I have such a soft spot for it. It's so weird and unique and quirky, and I'm so glad it exists. I'm so glad it exists, and at some point I've got to do like a proper playthrough on the channel because it's important to me. But next up, number 3, who's taking the bronze medal? It's Lego Star Wars, the video game. Yeah. Not the sequel. Not the sequel, we'll get to it. LEGO Star Wars was maybe my first introduction to Star Wars as someone who could appreciate media. I have extremely foggy memories of like the original movies, but I was probably 3 years old. I didn't know what was going on, but then came LEGO Star Wars, and I remember one of my fondest memories of LEGO Star Wars... What did I just say? One of my fondest memories is, I think before I owned the game, I went over to a friend's house. We did a sleepover, and we played through, me and my two friends, we played through, or I guess we probably sat and watched him play through LEGO Star Wars for video game in its entirety, except for some reason he played through all of episode 3, then 2, then 1. That sticks out in my mind. In fact, I think they stayed up all night playing it and I decided to go to sleep because I felt weird staying awake. It was out of routine, it was different. I might be autistic, by the way, that's a different tangent. But yeah, some of my earliest memories about LEGO Star Wars the video game are just ingrained with cozy vibes of being at my friend's house and having a good time with my friends, and I guess discovering the Star Wars universe for the first time, which is a fun way to think about it now because there's no dialogue in that old game. But yeah, why do I choose LEGO Star Wars 1 over 2? Partly it's sentimentality, as you've seen and will continue to see in this list. I value sentimentality over objective, like, improvements in sequels. But also, I don't know that I agree that LEGO Star Wars 2 is an objective improvement. Everyone seems to prefer 2, but in my opinion, the levels are a little bit longer, the puzzles are a little bit more obtuse, and I just, generally speaking, didn't enjoy it quite as much. Now, of course, nowadays I don't play either of these games. I play LEGO Star Wars the complete saga when I want to go back and play those old games on Steam, which is a little bit different. And the thing that I miss the most about LEGO Star Wars the video game, the original game, is probably Dexter's Diner, because Dexter's Diner was the original hub world, and the way they did it was pretty fun. So in the cantina, whatever, you would have characters that you unlocked come in and walk around, and all would be civil. Everyone would obey the laws of the land. And then you could go outside and the kid gloves were off. It was open season. Jedi sees Sith, Jedi guns for the Sith. Those mofos are squaring up, they are facing down, there is murder in the streets. And you know, while this isn't something that would appeal to my adult brain, as a kid, I think I spent the bulk of my time in that game just beating up characters outside of Dexter's Diner and watching these little skirmishes unfold. It was fascinating to me. In the complete saga, it just defaults to Mos Eisley Cantina, and it's just not the same, man. It just doesn't have the same vibes. I'm a prequel Andy, okay? But yeah, my love of LEGO Star Wars is why LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga was one of my most anticipated games when it was announced. And, you know, I guess it's also why LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight is one of my currently most anticipated games. Those games just fucking rock, man. I don't care how old you are. What are you gonna do? Sit down and play Call of Duty Black Ops 7? No, shut up. Go boot up a PS2 and play LEGO Star Wars like a real man. Okay, we're getting up there in numbers now. Stop and think about this before what kind of games are you expecting to hear me talk about for my second and first placements? Is there any major franchise of the PlayStation 2 that I've yet to talk about? I guess most of them. But based on what I've already told you about what I like about video games so far, can we guess what the next... Okay, I'm gonna shut up now. Number 2, Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy. This game, this open world adventure platforming game, is an unmitigated masterpiece. It achieves everything it sets out to do, and it does so with such mastery, like on a technical level, on a conceptual level, on a fun level. After making the critically acclaimed Crash Bandicoot trilogy of games, Naughty Dog said, what's next for us? And they looked at the PS2 and all that it had to offer, and they said, we're going to do a proper open world 3D platformer. And it's just delightful. I don't really know how I'm supposed to, in words, convey to you, someone who may have never seen or heard of or played Jak and Daxter before, just how delightful this game is. Like, one of the things which is difficult here is a lot of the things this game does really well isn't the craziest thing from today's perspective, but it was at the time. You know that mountain? You can go there. You know that line about Skyrim? Yeah, Todd Howard stole that shit from Jak and Daxter, because at the very beginning of that game, they point you towards the end of it and they say, that's where we're headed. And that isn't behind loading screens. It is all one cohesive, seamless world from exiting your house to outside the final boss room. And I've seen videos about how they hid loading behind like corners and stuff, and the way that the construction of the world is done so subtly that you wouldn't notice these little load times. I mean, the obvious ones are like when you go down to that underwater city and you're on a lift, right? And it's not a loading screen, but it's a loading screen, let's be real. But those obvious ones even are few and far between. And as you play through the game, you really do get this sense that you can kind of, well, not necessarily go anywhere, because you've got to unlock like the ability to continue on forwards. You've got to collect a certain amount of precursor orbs in order to charge your hover vehicle, whatever it's called, so that you can get across the lava pits to get towards the next section of the level. But the way the entire game world is designed is so cohesive, it's just, I just want to play it again. I just want to play through that game every year. And you know, Jak 2 and Jak 3 would go on and be different kinds of games. They would be more GTA style, like kid-friendly GTA style open world games. I do kind of wish that we had a Jak and Daxter 2 and a Jak and Daxter 3, but at the same time, I am glad that Jak 2 and Jak 3 exist, because those are excellent games in their own right. But Jak and Daxter is still my favourite in the entire series. God damn, I love Jak and Daxter. But, you know, it's not my favourite game. It's close. It's a very well-deserved silver trophy. But what takes the gold? I'm sure anyone who knows me is not going to be surprised.
I see it's time to update my security forces.
Whoa, no, hey, no, look, I'm just here to fix the transflexor coil.
Nice try. Give my regards to Megacorp. Finish him.
In first place is Ratchet & Clank 2. For those of you who are somehow unaware, Ratchet & Clank is probably the closest the PlayStation 2 had to having its own era-specific mascot. Some people would argue God of War, I didn't play that. It is a action platformer with a heavy emphasis on action, to the point where as the series evolved, it kind of became more of a third-person shooter. And honestly, that's probably one of the reasons why I'm choosing Ratchet & Clank 2 as my favourite entry here. While Ratchet & Clank 3 is probably objectively the best in the series and the perfection of the formula, Ratchet & Clank 2 was still a little bit more platformer than shooter. And also, as I've already established, I'm going for sentimental value above all here, and it has the most sentimental value for me personally. I've beaten this game so many goddamn times. I know all the planets, I know all the cinematics, and it has some of my favourite guns. In Ratchet & Clank 3, you can upgrade your guns like 5 times, and on like the 5th time, it becomes like its final evolution and it becomes kind of transformative. In Ratchet & Clank 2, you just had the base weapon and then the upgraded weapon. And I'm not saying that was better, but it was a little bit more of a fun transformation, I suppose. Instead of going from V1 to V2 and knowing that like you did a bit more damage, you're going from, you know, the chopper to like the multi-star chopper, where you're suddenly the stars that you throw out split on hitting an enemy and then sneak around and hit them again a couple of times, and it's like, whoa, it does something different now. Ratchet & Clank 2 is one of those games that has been kind of a part of me for so long that I don't know how to sell it, because in my eyes, it's almost like, I'm like, oh right, people need to be sold on this game. It's not just a game that everyone's going to go out of their way to play the second they see it. Like, you know, it's part of my DNA. It's not a game that I'm trying to sell you. But if I had to sell you on it, The main two things I would sell you on it are the unique weapons, as you've probably seen from even modern Ratchet & Clank titles, like I think the Pixelator was in the Ratchet & Clank 2016 reboot, and then you've got things like the Topiary Sprinkler, which turn enemies into like garden plants and shit. I think that was in the latest one. You've always had like these super imaginative weapons, and it's always so fun to see how they're going to evolve when you don't know what they're going to evolve into for the first time. It's a bit like Pokemon, but a lot more deadly. And again, Ratchet & Clank 2 had some of my favorite weapons in the series. It has the bouncer, which becomes the heavy bouncer, which is this grenade launcher which bounces along and then splits into smaller bombs, and then the sound design on that weapon is amazing, by the way. You've got the mini turret glove, which throws out portable turrets. You've got, like I've already said, the chopper, I believe it's called, where you throw out a throwing star and it homes in on your enemies and kind of zooms around and hits them again like a little boomerang. You've got the plasma cannon, or is it called the Tesla coil? That is the one thing about Ratchet & Clank as a series. You do get certain weapons which don't necessarily show up in multiple games, although you do get that too, but weapons which are of a similar type, which are a little bit different. Obviously, the main one being like the blaster slash the lancer slash whatever it's called in later games, which is your fairly standard point and shoot gun. But yeah, weapon design in Ratchet & Clank is unmatched across all video games, fight me. But the other thing I would sell you on is the level design. Every planet you go to has such a unique look and feel, and it's just delightful. I am always attracted to games which use planets as levels because of Ratchet & Clank as a series, because I'm always excited in a new Ratchet & Clank game to see what's next. Where am I going next? What biome, what planet am I stepping onto, which has its own enemy types as well. That's another one, enemy variety. You know, later games do end up falling back on usage of goons and stuff a little too often, I think, but especially in Ratchet & Clank 2, there are so many different enemy types. Like on planet Oozla, one of the first planets you go to, you get these like snails, like these giant snails and stuff, and you get like these weird hopping creatures that try and breathe on you to damage you, and you get like these swarms of like these yellow flies which try and attack you. And you know, then you go to the second planet, or I guess the second level. This one's not quite a planet, it's the Mactar Nebula, and it's completely different. You do get the Thugs for Less goons, but then you've also got the arena where you get to fight the, like, first of all, you get all like these robotic enemies, which all behave in different ways, and they're so satisfying to beat up and blow up and stuff as well, by the way. And then you got like the boss fights, like the B2 Brawler and Chainblade and stuff. It's not the craziest boss fights you're ever gonna go up against, you know, it's not Dark Souls or anything, but it's fun and unique and interesting. And if I had one final thing to sell you on with this game, it's just, if you've ever played a collectathon platformer where collecting the currency is the most satisfying part of the game, you're gonna love Ratchet & Clank, because you smash crates to collect bolts, and just everything about the sound design and the visual effects and everything, it's like crack. I'm telling you, I need those bolts, man. Especially as you progress through the game and you start getting to later levels with, you know, denominations of bolts which grant you more currency than previous ones, and you notice it, and you start getting the highest ones which give you like 1,000 bolts per collection, and they're like these little kind of round ones with little knobs on them and stuff. It's just, it feels so good when you start collecting those. But yeah, Ratchet & Clank, man. Oh, my love. I really, really, really want Sony to... I know they did like a PS3 HD collection for the original Ratchet & Clank games. I want them to do it again, but do it properly this time, and release it on PC as well, please, because I do not have a PS5. Although, you know, they could just do a PS2 Classics and release it on PSN, because I'm pretty sure that would allow me to play it on PS4, which I would do in a heartbeat. They did not too long ago release Ratchet & Clank Size Matters, the PSP game, as a PSN Classic or whatever, which I played a bit of on my PS4, but that's Ratchet & Clank Size Matters. Spoilers for the top 10 PSP games. Ratchet & Clank Size Matters will not be number 1. It might have to make an appearance though, because I haven't played that many PSP games. Anyway, I think that's gonna do it. There you go. There's my top 10 PlayStation 2 games. Don't think too hard about the order, because below the top 3 maybe, it's pretty much fair game if I'm being honest. They will chop and change and shuffle around. Some of the honorable mentions will probably shift back into the top 10 and out, depending on when I'm thinking about them. So thanks for sticking around, thanks for enjoying this video, and I guess next up will be, what console did I own after the PS2? Next up will be the top 10 DS games. Actually, I'm very excited to do that as well. My favorite thing about doing these videos, I guess it would have to be GBA games. But I've only ever played like 3 GBA games, so I don't know how I'm going to do that. My favorite part of these videos is being able to relive these fond memories and gush about them. So yeah, let me know what your favorite PS2 games are if you like. Stick around for top 10 DS games. Hopefully it's not 6 months away this time, and I'll catch you in whatever I make next.